What is going on, guys? Duranathor here, and today I'm going to be going through the Elfnote deck list that doesn't have the Fortune Lady cards like I did a couple of weeks ago. This is the Fiendsmith with the Medius, just to kind of go through the differences of those, and also maybe try something a little bit different, sort of go into what's going to be hand-trapped and how you can kind of play if you do get hand-trapped, kind of what to think about and what to go around. So I'm going to go through the ratios and things that I'm playing pretty quickly, and then get into more of a kind of discussion around what the deck does. So we're playing 3 Medius and 3 Theo Realize. Medius summons the patron, use Medius in the patron to make Armades, your full Fiendsmith combo to end on Wave King, with sequence to be able to send from Welcome Home, which you will be searching the Lucina at Tinia when you use the Power Patron to synchro. Ideally, you kind of want to see Theo Realize, because then it doesn't use up your normal summon, and that's why I'm playing 2 with the patron, because you can use Lucina to search for another patron and normal the patron if you've used Theo Realize. But if you see Medius, you're not too worried, because it still gets you into your combo. The Elfnote lineup is still the same: 3 Lucina, 3 Tinia, 1 Fortuna, 2 Patron, 2 Welcome Home, 1 Rhapsodia. I know I mentioned you could probably play it at 1, the Power Patron this is, but as discussed, if you hit Theo Realize and you can get another normal summon of your Power Patron, you can end on Wave King, you can end on Crystal Wing and a Elfnote, and then at the beginning of the turn you can use Rhapsodia to bring back Seraphim Slitzia, and then use Slitzia's effect to bring back something else. There's just a lot of open ways that you can go by having the 2 patrons and getting Theo Realize rather than Medius. Fiendsmith lineup, playing 2 Engraver, 1 Lacrima, 1 Lurry, 1 Tract. The reason I've got the 2 Engraver is because if you see one, you can use its effect to discard it, add the Tract, Tract to add Lurry, discard Fiendsmith combo. I was playing 3, but I kept seeing 2 in my hand, or I kept seeing Engraver alongside a Tract or Lacrima, which isn't awful, but you don't really want to see the Fiendsmith stuff because of how much you're going to be using it going through your deck. So I'm finding 2 Engravers a pretty good spot. I don't think you need more Tract. I don't think, you necessarily don't even need the Tract, but it depends how much you want to play and how much you want to push. I have found that this is kind of like a really good sweet spot, but if you want to play more, if you want to play less, perfectly fine. Your whole Fiendsmith combo can be just with 1 Engraver, and then that frees up some extra deck space. But I feel like if you're going to do it, like this baits some hand traps. Lacrima can bait a hand trap, so you're okay. Hand trap ratio is still the same. We have the 2 Droll because it's at 2. We have 3 Ash, 3 Fua. We've got the 1 Druis Worm because it's probably my favourite bestial that actually does quite a few things. We've got 3 Nibiru, 3 Imperm, and I'm still playing Secret Village. Mainly because sometimes you just slam down a Secret Village and win the game. Extra deck looks a bit different because we've got the Fiendsmith cards in there. So we've got the Wave King, which is just your final point that you want to hit. You want to hit Wave King because it stops 2 special summons. It forces your opponent to nib you in your Fiendsmith line. Otherwise, they just sit there and face down a Wave King. And if they nib and you use 1 of Wave Kings, you've still got 1 negate of a special summon on your opponent's turn. So it kind of forces them to use it at a less than optimal point, because you then still get your entire Elfnote combo. So we've got the Necro Equip, which is kind of like a shortcut version, I guess, if you're scared of Imperm on the sequence. So you can use the Necro Equip, you can Requiem onto the Lacrima, make Necro Equip, summon back the Engraver, make Wave King, just in case you don't want to go for extra deck Lacrima. So you could potentially get rid of Sequence and the extra deck Lacrima, and free up 2 more of your extra monster zones. Extra deck zone, sorry, which is why these 2 are down here. You could probably put in a Hyper Librarian and a Desiree. But this is what I'm finding works at the moment for the Fiendsmith package. Link Spider, so that you can play around Nibiru in one way. There is another way that you can play with Nibiru, and I'll touch on it in a moment. I guess Armades is kind of included in the Fiendsmith package because it is the Light Fiend, and it gets you the search with Power Patron. Black Rose Dragon, love this card. We'll explain a lot about this card that some people haven't thought of. Love this card. Got Crystal Wing, 1 Omega, 2 Slitzia, 1 Scarlight, 1 Janora, and 1 Chaos Angel. The reason I've put these cards down here is their kind of thought processes. Celestial Observatory, you place a level 6 monster from your hand or field to the bottom of your deck and draw 2. That includes your Fiendsmith Engraver. And if you really, really wanted to, you could Requiem onto Lacrima to make Necroquip to put it to the bottom and draw 2. It's an option. I think I'm definitely going to try and find a playset of these at my next locals. Because if you play a Elfnote and it gets hand-trapped, you can Celestial Observatory to put it to the bottom and draw 2, and if you see another Elfnote, you can Special Summon it because it frees up your middle monster zone. I've mentioned Hyper Librarian and Desiree. Hyper Librarian, I found you just go for Armades all the time. You don't really need to go for the Hyper Librarian anymore, but it's an option. I'll move that across. Desiree, once again, you're going for your Wave King. I guess this is like turn 3, turn 4. You could go for a Desiree instead. But I think Wave King's just the better option. But they've got Dominus Impulse. I see a lot of Elfnote decks playing Dominus Impulse. I don't like this in this deck. I think the card itself is amazing because it stops the special summon, and if you have a trap, it destroys it. But it locks you out of light, earth, and wind. So it locks you out of all of your Fiendsmith stuff, locks you out of Nibiru, it locks you out of Fualos, it locks you out of Crystal Wing. I feel like it just locks, and like, oh yeah, use those cards first. But if your opponent goes to special summon something, and you've got, say, like, you haven't Fu'd already, which you probably would just Fu already, that's the one I can understand. But you stop one special summon, if they just keep going, you can't Nibiru them. And then if you've had to Impulse and you draw your Fiendsmith cards, like, it doesn't do anything, because you can't activate their effects. I would understand playing it in a pure build, where, like, oh no, I don't get a Crystal Wing, but that's fine. But losing, like, all of your Fiendsmith stuff, and yeah, okay, it's not the end of the world. But you can't even Engraver effect in the graveyard to bring it back. I don't like this. People do, people play it, fair play. I don't like it. One option that I've seen, and if it wasn't for these cards being like £50 to £60 each, I might play them, because you can use Theo Realize to change your spell, well, even Engraver if you really need to, or your Elfnotes to Spellcasters, Dark Spellcasters, and summon this from your extra deck to search Gaze of Timaeus to fuse this to make a Dragoon. So you end up with an Omni Negate, which is pretty cool. These are just really expensive, and I don't really want to pay £100 for an Omni Negate, because I have Crystal Wing for a monster negate, which most of the time is just what you need. Because you don't use the normal version of Dark Magician, so you don't even get the pop. Like, Dragoon's a good card. Is it £100? No. And then we go into Regina, who I can't wait for this card to come out. I think this card is really good. It lets you play, if you go second, you can still play the game on your opponent's turn, which is incredible, because you discard another Elfnote to summon Regina, it special summons her, and then you special summon an Elfnote from your deck. So in your opponent's draw phase, before the game has even started, you can Tinea to tear a card from their hand until the end of the turn. And if Regina's used to Synchro, you just add her back to your hand. I'm really looking forward to Regina. I feel like the deck might play slightly differently with Regina, but I'm really, really looking forward to Regina. She's definitely going to be a 3-off. You want to see her all the time. It's just free extension. And she's a wind, which would get turned off by Impulse, which is not what you want. And then we have the new Power Patron Shadow Spirit Generaldo. I think I pronounced that correctly. I've seen a couple OCG lists playing this at 1, and I think if you're going to play it, you would play it at 1. Because if you've special summoned an Elfnote or a Power Patron, you draw 2 and then discard 1. But you have to pop this guy as well. And if it is a monster, you can banish the top 3 cards of your deck destroy this card, and if you do, special summon Junora from the extra deck. Which, you know, gives you a full negate by popping this guy on board. And then if this card is added to the extra deck face up, which it will be when it's destroyed, you can add a Power Patron or an Elfnote card from your face up extra deck or graveyard to the hand. So it recurs the things in the graveyard. So if your Seraphim Slitzia is in the grave, you can put this back to the extra deck with it. You can put Regina back to your hand. Yeah, it opens up quite a bit, which is why I see people playing it at 1. I think 1 is the right balance, I guess. I don't think you want to play more than 1 of this. Now, going into kind of like more of the discussion side of things, if you have just come for the deck profile, there we go. But going into kind of a more of a discussion, this feels a lot better as a deck than the Elfnote Fortune Lady, and I think that's just a given. You know, the Fortune Lady stuff is kind of like half bricks, whereas a lot of these cards can do stuff on their own. The only one that can't is Rhapsodia. So like, this is the card that you just don't want to see in your hand. If you do, it's not awful because you can still place it from your hand with Fortuna. Fortuna doesn't have to do it from the deck. But if you're placing this from your hand, it's a hand trap that you don't have. It's an Elfnote that you don't have. So you really don't want to be seeing this in your starting hand. But don't panic if you do. I touched on it earlier, the difference between like Medius and Theorealize. Theorealize sends Medius as a cost. So your opponent, you know, can't respond to this, and you look at the top card of your opponent's deck. Now, a lot of the time it's like, oh, if it's a good card, you'll just be putting it to the bottom. But if it's, say, a mirror match, and you see they have Medius on top of their deck, and you've got your Wave King, your Crystal Wing set up, and you've got maybe an Ash Blossom in hand, I think, personally, you'd be better off letting them have the card that you know they're going to draw and being able to negate it, rather than putting it to the bottom and risking something. Because if they're randomly playing, like, especially in Game 3, this would be, but like Game 1, if they're randomly playing it, then fair play to them. But like Game 3, if you're going first and you look at the top card of your opponent's deck and it's like a Pot of Desires or something like that, and you have an Ash Blossom in your hand, you are better off to let them draw the Pot of Desires than put the pot to the bottom and then potentially they draw a Dark Ruler or an Imperm or Lightning Storm. Like, you'd just be a lot better off letting them draw a card that may give them a tiny bit of advantage that you know you can stop, rather than giving them an unknown card. The Elfnote monsters themselves can only special summon themselves to the center monster zone, so if you do get stuck, it can be quite difficult to keep playing, which is where I think Celestial Observatory will come into play, where I also think Welcome Home will come into play. There is also potential that you play like SP, so that you can get some monsters off of the board to free up your center monster zone. Your kind of choke points seem to be right at the beginning of the combo. Lucina is very susceptible to being ashed, or you get drolled after you've done the ad, which then stops you getting the ad from the Power Patron. If you're stuck between Lucina and Tinia in your hand, you then need to just weigh up what hand traps you think. If you'd like to play around Droll, you should go for the Tinia to get the Welcome Home to send, get the Fortuna to get the Homecoming, you know, play from there. Homecoming, send the Fortuna, get the Tinia back, special summon the Lucinas to the center monster zone, then do your search. So if you get drolled, it's kind of after you've done quite a few things and set up a couple monsters. But if you play Lucina and get ashed and you don't have the Power Patron, it can be really difficult to keep going. I think you're more likely now that Droll is at 2 to see your opponent play Ash or Imperm than you are to get Drolled. So Lucina's becoming a bit more of a okay starter. I still don't think she's the optimal one. I think Tinia is much better to have as your starter. She is the card that you want to see if you don't see any of your Medius or Fiendsmith, because she places the continuous spell, and then with the continuous spell you can send Tinia from the middle monster zone, and then if it does get ashed and you have another Elfnote in your hand, you can special summon that Elfnote to the middle monster zone. Your opponent playing Ash on Welcome Home is just very, very sad. Very sad, because you're sending the monster and then trying to summon from deck. So your opponent should be saving their Ash for the Welcome Home. Your opponent should be imperming either of these two, your Lucina or your Tinia, and they will be drolling after you've Lucinaed. So just something to keep in mind depending on how you want to play. Nibiru isn't too much of a worry for this deck, because if you only see your Elfnote cards, you can get into Crystal Wing on Summon 5, and if you see your Fiendsmith or Medius, it then forces your opponent to use the Nibiru before you fully go down the Elfnote route. One thing I've seen people doing, and I do understand, is they've been taking out Link Spider from the extra deck. So when you Medius to get the patron, you go into Armades and search for Tinia, you summon Tinia and place the Welcome Home, then you Fiendsmith combo, so that if your opponent ashes you, you can use Welcome Home to send the token. Which I understand, which does make sense, because then you can summon the Lucina to search for the patron, the second patron, because you've already used the first one. Because if you use Lucina to then search for Fortuna, you have no way of getting Lucina out of the middle monster zone, which is why I'm playing the second patron. Maybe I'm just kind of bad at the deck, but I am finding the second patron has helped me so many more times than it would have hindered me, and there have been moments where I've been impermed, and I was like, I just need a second patron to be able to go through and do everything. So it has come up, has been very, very helpful playing 2 of the patron. Apart from Caught by the Grave, there's not really much that your opponent will do against the patron. Like, the patron search that you get from the grave, if your opponent ashes that, like, yeah, okay, it's a bit frustrating, but if you have anything else in your hand, you're okay with them ashing the power patron. Same with the Engraver. Like, if you discard the Engraver to go for Tract, and they ash it, it's frustrating, but it's not like the end of the world, because if you've used Theo Realize, you can make any monster a Light Fiend, go for Requiem, summon the other Engraver, use this Engraver effect, shuffle back the Requiem, and then just go straight for Wave King. So you don't mind if they ash Engraver, you don't mind if they ash Power Patron, unless it is your only plays, and like if they're ashing your only play, there's nothing you're doing anyway. I've never seen anyone use a hand trap on Fortuna, but be aware that they can Ghost Spell the Maddening Rhapsodia. And that's probably one of the better targets for Ghost Spell in this deck. Rather than hitting some of the Fiendsmith stuff, if they can hit your Rhapsodia, even, like, you know, if someone Ghost Ogres Rhapsodia or Welcome Home, you're in trouble. So, I get the fragile talk that's been going around this deck, but much like every deck, it kind of depends on your starting hand. You know, if you have Medius and Lucina or Tinia, you can easily get hand trapped twice and still kind of keep going a little bit. You know, if you only have, say, like, Medius draw, Ash to Imperm, you normal the Medius, it gets Impermed. Like, no matter what deck you're playing, if you have one starter and 4 hand traps, it's going to be really, really susceptible to your opponent's hand traps. But there's enough in this that I feel like you can almost bait out 1 or 2 and not be too worried. I mean, like, if you Fua and your opponent Ash Blossoms that, okay, you'd much prefer to get the draws, but the odds of them then having a second Ash Blossom when you start your turn is going to be quite low. And thinking on Secret Village, I know a lot of the time people are like, oh, but you want to go first with Secret Village so that you can just lock your opponent out of spells. It doesn't do anything going second. It does plenty going second. Because you can special summon your spellcasters just completely for free. And it's an inherent summon, so your opponent can't, like, Solemn Strike the summon. They can't Wave King the summon. It just puts itself in the center monster zone. So if your opponent's got a couple quick play spells, I can't remember, the Radiant Typhoon, I'm pretty sure doesn't have a spellcaster, and their entire deck almost like revolves around Mystical Space Typhoon. So you kind of just slap down a Secret Village, and then that forces them to have to destroy it. Otherwise you just special summon a spellcaster and they can't play the game. And if they're destroying this, they're not destroying Welcome Home, and they're not destroying Rhapsodia. I love Secret Village in this deck. Going first, it's insane. Going second, it's still really, really good. But speaking of going second, this is what you make every single time you have to go second. You make Black Rose. Before you do too much, you Black Rose and just get rid of everything on the board and let your opponent deal with the like graveyard effects or extra effects and things that they get. But this destroys all cards on the field. And you can chain block it, I guess, or like you can chain block the patron. So let's say you're going second, your opponent set up a couple things. You special the Lucina, add the Power Patron, normal the Power Patron, sync them both into Black Rose. Patron effect to search, Black Rose effect to nuke. They then can Ash the Patron, and they have to Imperm or Effect Veiler or Ghost Mourner the Black Rose. And even if they do, you're still getting your search off of Patron, and you're ending up with the level 7 on board, which isn't great, but it's not bad. Like, going second, just make a Black Rose. Just, unless, like, there's this really, really weird off occasion where, I can't even think on it. Like, there's going to be that odd niche one where someone was like, well, I didn't need to use Black Rose and I was going second because I did all this and blah. Like, yeah, that's going to appear, but you're destroying every card on the field. Pretty good. There was a time at, not the most recent locals, but the one before, where my opponent made a massive board, and I had Nibiru, and he didn't have a negate to stop the Nibiru. And I think the token had over 10,000 attack and defense. And I drew for turn. I was just kind of like, what do I do? Like, what do I do to deal with this? I was looking through like main deck, I looked at my hand. I was like, I can't attack it, I can't. Like, Scarlight doesn't work. And then I saw Black Rose and I was like, of course. Of course. So my opponent's big 10k token. Black Rose, it's gone. Crack on with full combo because I searched Tinia with Patron. Tinia to add Homecoming, Fortuna. And then I managed to win the game that turn. I think I had to. I think if I didn't win the game that turn, I would have used too many resources. But Black Rose, it's level 7. So easy to get to. It's an entire board wipe. Black Rose. So, just to kind of do a little summary bit at the end. This is to make you guys aware of what's going to be hand-trapped. And also, I find knowing the weak points of my deck help me to play around a little bit better. So, The main cards that your opponent is going to target will be obviously dependent on the hand traps. They are more than likely going to Ash or Imperm your Medius. They can't do anything to Theorealize, and you get to potentially just give them a dead hand trap for their next turn. They will draw you after the Lucina, or they may even Ash Imperm Veiler the Lucina. Once people know what this deck does, they're going to Imperm your Tinia. Imperm Veiler. They're going to try and hand trap the Tinia. That's something to keep in mind. There's not really any way that you can play around it. I think you kind of just have to accept it. You can try and bait out a hand trap using, say, like Medius first, or going down your Fiendsmith combo. But once people really, really know what this deck does, I think the main target they're going to hit is the Tinia, because Welcome Home just opens up the game for you. But then if they have Ash, they're going to be Ashing Welcome Home, so you want to try and make them Ash something before you play the Welcome Home. You want them to Ash your Engraver or your Tract rather than your Welcome Home. You'd rather lose out on your Fiendsmith package than lose this card, or the use of that card for a turn. If they have Ghost Ogre, these are going. I'm not seeing too much Ghost Ogre. I guess it kind of depends on the popularity of this deck and how well it does. But your opponent will Ghost Ogre your continuous spells and your continuous traps. They should never Ghost Ogre your Elfnote monsters, because it frees up your center monster zone. But you never know. You just never know. If anything gets hit by Called By, it's probably going to be the Power Patron. And if anything's going to get hit by Bell, obviously it's going to be your Maddening Rhapsodia, and it's also going to be your Seraphim Slitzia. Because the Bestials are at 1 now, the good ones are at 1, we're not going to see too much more Bell, I don't think. Although saying that, it is really good against Draco Tail, so it's something to keep in mind. Maybe not game 1, but games 2 and 3, maybe be a bit more wary of Bell, and when you're using your Seraphim Slitzia. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Strelitzia? Strelitzia? Well, Strelitzia. I don't really know, apart from Imperm and Veiler, Mourner, how they would stop your Black Rose. So if you, say, have opened just Lurie, you kind of hope that your opponent ashes the Requiem. Either that, or they're probably going to Imperm Veiler the Sequence, because then it leaves you with a link to, you've already used the Engraver effect Engrave. It leaves you with just a light link to that you can't do too much with, but that's where Homecoming comes in, and that's why you would have searched Tinia with Power Patron. But this could get belled because it shuffles back. This will probably get Imperm or Veilered. So thinking of, let's just press Test Hand. So with something like this, if our opponent had 2 Ashes, let's say they Fua, you Ash the Fua because you just don't want them getting the draws. So we have Theorealize and we have Engraver. So Theorealize lets you do your entire Fiendsmith combo anyway, so your best bet is to Engraver to try and add the Tract. And I would guess at this point they probably wouldn't Ash, just in case you've got a bit of follow-up. So Requiem is once per turn that you can summon it, so it makes sense to Ash the Requiem, or maybe the Tract, I guess. But I would be more inclined to Ash the Requiem. So we'll add the Lurie, we'll discard the Lurie, we'll Lurie effect, and go for Requiem. So we've got the Engraver effect to bring him back if we need to, but we will try and Requiem, and then our opponent will Ash us. So that is basically our Fiendsmith line done, but you know that they've used the Ash, and they've forward. So say they're down to 3. This then opens you up to be able to Theorealize for your Medius, and that was a Power Patron. Once again, giving them a Power Patron rather than giving them a completely unknown card, like that's the normal summon, we're going to end up being able to Ash something. We're also probably going to end up with like a Crystal Wing and the ability to bounce back a level 6 or lower, so I would be inclined to let them keep that draw. We're then going to use Medius effect and shuffle back the Fua because it doesn't do anything for us. And even though the Requiem is gone, we're not going to be able, we're not going to be kind of too deterred, because we can use Power Patron effect, and this is kind of where, like, what line do you go now? We could use Power Patron effect to go for Omega. We could still go for the Armades, get the search, and then it's the Armades that we can send instead. I think I didn't put Patron in the middle monster zone, so we can't go for Omega. That's me being silly. So we're going to go for the Armades, because then we get the Power Patron search, and I think most of the time you're going to be adding the Lucina, the Tinea even. So we'll go for the Tinea. So yeah, we've got Theorealize to change something if we need to, Requiem effect to attach to a Fiend. So, you know, even though we've been Ashed, we can still Requiem to attach to the Armades. We can make Necroquip, which is why I'm playing it, pretty obvious. We can Engraver, shuffle back the Requiem, and even through all that, we still managed to go for Wave King. I could have gone for Sequence there, to then get the Fusion deck Lacrima, use the Lacrima effect to bring back, but there's not too much more. Like, we could have put maybe the Armades and the Lurry back, but I think at that point you just kind of want to go for your Wave King. With a Necroquip and an Engraver. Could I have gone for Sequence, actually? Am I lying? 2 monsters, including a Light Fiend. Okay. So, like, your opponent could have held the nib thinking you were going to go for the Sequence, and then you just slap down a Wave King. So even though Requiem got Ashed, we still ended up with our Wave King. We then special the Tinea. Tinea to play the Welcome Home. And a Welcome Home to send the Tinea. This is where you go for the Lucina. We Lucina. Now, because we've used the Power Patron, we can go for the Fortuna. Special Fortuna. Fortuna to get the trap, so we've got our spell and our trap set up. We're then going to use the Rhapsodia to send the Fortuna, so we can get the Patron back. You can't send the Lucina because it's a fire as well. And then from here we get our Seraphim Slitzia. And then we can either bring back an Elfnote, so that then we've got more to discard with the Maddening Rhapsodia, or we could go for the Power Patron to end on a Crystal Wing, which I think, knowing that our opponent's getting the Power Patron, we'll go for the Crystal Wing. And this may seem strange, but I'm quite tempted to put the Crystal Wing in the center monster zone so that they have to attack it and it won't be destroyed by card effects. We've still got Theorealize if we need to. As I said, if I had placed in the middle monster zone, we could have gone for Omega, but going for a Wave King just seems a bit better. So we had to stop our opponent's Fua, and we got Ashed, and we still end on stopping 2 summons, a monster negate. If we really need to, we can send Ash with the Maddening Rhapsodia to then get either Tinia or Fortuna. And like Tinia, we could switch it to the center monster zone and rip a card out of their hand. We wouldn't be able to go for the Seraphim Slitzia because Ash is a fire, so opening up that, we would probably have to send the Crystal Wing. But if you've used your Crystal Wing effect, you can get the Slitzia back, you can Slitzia to get back either Tinia, Lucina, Fortuna, switch to the middle monster zone. So there's a lot that you can do with this, and that was, you know, getting Ash to a pretty difficult point as well. So hopefully this video has been helpful for you guys. If you are playing the deck a bit, kind of thinking what can I do to expand my knowledge a little bit more, hopefully some of these questions that I raised to myself when playing, you'll be able to raise to yourself and kind of work through. If you're thinking of picking up the deck, and now that you've seen this and you're kind of going, there is a lot of variation. It's not just like a flat out linear, this is how you play, this is what you do. But there's enough kind of linearity that it's easy to learn and it's easy to pick up. Most of the time, if you want to just stick to simple, you can get Wave King, Crystal Wing, and an Elfnote. If you don't see any of your Fiendsmith stuff, you can end up with 2 Elfnotes and a Slitzia to be able to bring back the Patron to make Junora on your opponent's turn. The deck is easy to play, difficult to play at a higher level, I guess, would be the thought process. It feels like there's kind of a very high ceiling with what this deck can do, but if you've got pretty good knowledge around Fiendsmith and you've played like something similar like Kashtira, then I feel like this deck is a nice easy one to pick up, and then you can go down this line of watching videos, looking at other people's deck profiles, making the deck for how you want to play it, not just copying someone else's profile online. Best thing that you can do, you can kind of copy this, play this for a bit, find what you like, find what you don't like, and then kind of go from there. As always, guys, thank you for watching. If you have any questions or anything that I've missed, please feel free to drop it in the comments. I'll see you next time.